Hey, what's up, my comic book aficionados? It's your boy JayRoC. Today I'm gonna be hitting you with another review. This is gonna be from the publisher Dynamite. This is gonna be a crossover with the Twilight Zone and the Shadow. This is gonna be interesting because usually crossovers is two characters that are in the same story. And now here, the Twilight Zone, it's not exactly a character. It's just a comic book series, like a horror anthology type of thing. So it's just gonna be the Twilight Zone tone, but with a shadow in the story. So I was excited to read this one for sure. It's written by David Avallone, and the art is by Dave Acosta. This was released back in 2016, I believe. Okay, so there's this character named Kent Allard. That's the shadow. But he adapted this personality named Lamont Cranston, which is this millionaire guy that wants to fight crime, and his secret identity is the Shadow. So things get kind of crazy, a little weird. It's like he has three personalities, right? But at the end, he leaves Kent Allard, and it just becomes Lamont Cranston and the Shadow. So that's who the Shadow is, right? Now in this story, he starts off as Lamont Cranston, and starts off with a bang. This just starts off 100 miles per hour and running. You start off at a Nazi rally. What better villains, what more hateable people than a few Nazis, right? And this is the Shadow is from the 30s. He was originally created in the 30s, I believe 37, 36. It was right in that time where they were a thing, right? And the Shadow's right here, and he just murks all of them. He's just letting everybody have it. And then he runs. His getaway driver is with Margot Lane. She's in the back seat. Margot Lane being his kind of like his Robin, right? To his Batman. And she's telling him, "You just fucking killed everybody, and you had me set off this bomb or whatever." He goes, "Yeah." She goes, "I thought we weren't gonna kill any innocent people." He says, "We didn't." And this is crazy because she says, "But there was women and children there." And then he says, "Like I said, we didn't kill any innocent people." Because in his mind, they're all little Nazis too, you know. So fuck them. That was crazy. But I let you know what type of character he is. He ain't letting nothing slide. You're either good or you're bad. There ain't no in between with him. As they're arguing whether that was the good thing or a bad thing, because she thought, you're no different than they are. You're just killing someone for having different opinions than you, and that's not the way we do things. Or else we're just another hate group as well, right? And she made a good point there. So that's not actually justice. That's more like revenge, and there is a difference between the two. So while they're arguing, the car flips over, and we jump off to a scene where he's waking up. He's passed out. He's waking up, and he's no longer the Shadow. Now he's just Lamont Cranston, and he's talking to the Shadow, and the Shadow is Ken Allard. So even though he's both people, here now all of a sudden he's two different people. So now it's like this is the Twilight Zone stuff hitting now, right? It's like, oh, like, well, he's having like an out of body experience or something, and he's like, well, I don't have my superpowers. I'm not the Shadow. That guy's the Shadow, and he's tripping out. Now this story is genius. Um, as he's trying to figure out what's happening, Shiwan Khan shows up. That's one of Shadow's villains. He shows up to the place where he's staying at, and he's talking to Margot Robbie about how everything is weird and wrong. Like he's supposed to be the Shadow. So when Shiwan Khan shows up, they start fighting. They fall off the roof, and he wakes up again, right? And now he wakes up as Preston. Preston is the radio voice for the Shadow. Back in the days, there was this show, but back then, not a lot of people had televisions, so a lot of them was radio shows. You just audio, right? And the voice for that radio show was this guy named Preston. So now he's this voice actor named Preston, and he's like, "Hey, I'm the Shadow. I'm Lamont Cranston," and they're like, "No, you're Preston. You play the Shadow on your show." And he's talking to the woman that plays Margot Robbie, and he's letting her know, "Hey, I'm the Shadow." And she goes, "You're not really the Shadow. You just play him on the show." She goes, "No, no, I'm really the Shadow." And he's explaining what's going on to her. She starts getting trippy. She hands him a magazine saying, "See, there's the Shadow magazine." So the magazine got so popular, we reread these magazines on the radio, on air. She's explaining to him, as she's explaining to him, some guy comes in trying to mug somebody. The shadow tries to stop him, and they break out in a scuffle, right? And as this fight breaks out, he wakes up again in another era. And this time, he wakes up again, and now he's a different person again, right? Now he's Maxwell Grant. For those of you that don't know, Maxwell Grant writes the Shadow novels. I believe he also created the character. So now he's Maxwell Grant, and he's trying to figure out. They're telling him, "Hey, create this character, the Shadow," and he's like, "I am the Shadow." They're like, "Just create the character." So it's gonna be an easy job for him because he is the Shadow, so he already knows what to write. He's like, "Well, this guy was a millionaire, and so and so," and he writes the whole story because it's simple for him. He's just repeating his own life. And as this is happening, the typewriter comes to life, and he falls into the pages. His physical body falls into the pages. This is dope. I like everything that's going on here. It's very trippy. So Lady Justice shows up. Yeah, the statue. And she's telling him, "You're not out for justice. You're out for revenge. You're basically a terrorist yourself." And she's fighting with him. She lands this wicked blow on, on Maxwell Grant. When she does this, the shadow entity leaves his body. So only the Maxwell Grant stays there, right? And basically, it's like she's trying to let him know he needs to get rid of that. He's too much shadow and not enough Maxwell Grant, the creator. So then he starts leave the typewriter, whatever that sucked him into the pages. It's kind of releasing them again, and we wake up again. And now he wakes up for reals. Now he's back in the real world. So it turns out all this shit was a dream. Everything was a dream. And he wakes up and he goes, "That was all a dream." And he says, "That dream was supposed to teach me something. I was supposed to learn some type of lesson." And it's like, "Yeah, no shit. You were supposed to learn to stop being a freaking murderer. You're supposed to be out for justice, not be a criminal, you know?" So he's tied up in the Nazi camp, and you got this young Nazi there. He's taking care of him while he's tied up, and he goes, "You seem young to be a Nazi. Why are you a Nazi?" He goes, "Oh, the Jews, they own this store, and they fired my dad because he worked there. And the Jews, they own these buildings where we lived, and they kicked us out. So now I hate Jews. The Nazis are right. Everything they're telling me is correct." And he's telling this kid, he goes, "You're young to be full of hate. You're just being brainwashed by these idiots, basically, right?" And he's telling him, "Look, it's not a whole group that you hate. It was one landlord that you don't like, one boss that fired your dad. It's specific people. It's not a group. So just, you have your issues with them, with those specific people." And normally, once the shadow escapes, he will just kill this kid and kill everybody else. But here, he kind of learned from his dream, right? He's like, this kid doesn't, just because he's doing bad things, doesn't necessarily mean he's bad. So he goes, so it kind of, there's a moral to the story where like some people have redeeming qualities where maybe you could change them. And then there's some people that are just, there's no changing them. They're just bad because they're already broken. Something already happened in their life. They can't be fixed because they're like more weak-minded. So at the end, while he's getting away, some Nazis are about to get him, and that kid that he did not kill shoots the Nazis, and some of them shoot him back. So that kid dies anyway. What was the point? He died anyways. But now he died honorable. He didn't die a piece of shit racist. So that was kind of the end of the story. And it's telling us kind of like a little bit of the moral to the story here was kind of like as Lamont Cranston became the Shadow, he put a mask to hide that he's Lamont Cranston, to hide his secret identity. But in doing so, he didn't just change from Lamont Cranston to the Shadow. He also put a mask over his morals and his ideology. And now he's living by the Shadow's ideology, right? Which is live by the gun, die by the gun. And that's not necessarily a good thing. So that was crazy. I really enjoyed this story. If you like the Shadow, you'll get a kick out of this. You'll get a lot of little references here. It touches back to who was the original writer. We go backwards to who was the writer. Then after the writer created the magazines, who was the voice actor for the radio show. Then from the voice actor, who was the actual real character, right? Who was the real person. And if you're not familiar with the Shadow, you don't know too much about him, this is still a great book to read because you'll find out a lot about him after this. After reading this, you will kind of hop on to any shadow book, in my opinion. Yeah, so big ups to David Avallone, the person that wrote this book. Man, knocked it out the ballpark, my boy. That shit was a 5 star for me. It was well done, and the art was great as well. The art told a great story. It made the action scenes, they just silky smooth, man. And there's not much more to say about this. If you read this, let me know in the comment section down below what you thought about it. If you haven't, do you have any interest in the Shadow? Because I think the Shadow needs some love because he got some good stuff out there. Other than that, I'd like to thank you guys for taking some time out of your day to check out this video. And, hopefully you hit the like button on your way out. And I'll check you guys out next time.